everyone, and welcome to another episode of Show Us Your Insides. I'm Joel.
I'm Joshua.
And before we get started, we want to say we are on unceded, unsurrendered Wolastoqey territory. And also that you can catch us in a few different places. So you may be seeing us on YouTube.
You may be catching us on CHSR FM in Fredericton, New Brunswick. That's the campus radio station, community radio station, I would call it. Maybe one of the last free radio stations in the world. And they got some great content. And hopefully you're listening to us on there. And,
yes. Well, I'll say this after.
No, yeah.
Let's introduce our guest of the day, Katie Schurman.
Hello.
Hey, Katie. Thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
Pleasure to have you here. Katie is a singer-songwriter, musician. I know you play guitar.
Yeah. I play a handful of different... I'm like master of all, kind of.
Okay.
I want to be master of all.
Welcome to the
want to
club.
be master of all.
Okay, so attempting to master many instruments.
Yes.
Frequenter of open mic scenes.
Yes.
Also been playing lots of shows. Played a show with you recently at Tony's.
Yeah.
During Harvest. And add some stuff to that. Tell us about yourself.
Yeah.
Tell us about... let's just start, and let's not even talk about music. Who is Katie Schurman?
Well, I'm Katie. I am 20 years old. I'll be 21 very, very soon. I'm looking forward to it. Because my best friend lives down in New York. So
nice.
That's the last kind of age that we need to hit, and then we're good.
Mm-hmm.
I just moved to Fredericton about 3 years ago for school. Okay. I'm still a full-time student, so going into my fourth and hopefully final year of my undergrad. And
what are you taking?
I'm doing a film production degree. It's through the
How did I
media
not
arts and
know that?
culture side of things.
Film was like my thing.
When I met you, I think I was very, very fresh into it.
Okay.
Yeah.
These are some of his projects here.
I know. I was looking at those.
Well, we could talk about that a little too, because
Yeah.
really, on Show Us Your Insides, we're not just focusing on music. It's really just artistry and creativity, and like, why do you do it, right?
Yeah.
So if you've got like film projects you've worked on or screenplays or things, let's talk about it. So where you were saying you moved here and
so I'm originally from the small town of Embro, Ontario.
Mm-hmm.
Growing up, we said we have a population of 800 if you count the cows.
Oh.
I think it's probably moved up a little bit since then. We got our first subdivision.
I was going to say, you got a lot more cows.
Yes, yes, a
825
lot
now.
more cows. A lot more cows.
they have apartment complexes for the cows now.
Yeah, some nice barns.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I'm third generation there. My parents were elementary school sweethearts.
Wow.
So I grew up with them and my little brother, who's also, I'm lucky enough that he's very musical as well.
Cool.
Which was more of a thing. I feel like you hit a certain age with siblings. There's 3 years between us. Mm-hmm. So it was kind of going into high school for me. It's like you kind of find your own groups. Mm-hmm. And that's when your social groups kind of separate. So the fact that we still had music, that was kind of like the thing that kept us doing stuff together.
Oh, for sure.
So that was pretty cool, and probably half of my music taste right now is built off of stuff that he says is cool, and then I go and listen after.
It's good to have a person like that.
Yeah. He is much more advanced than I am in a lot of that stuff. So I was always encouraged to be musical as a kid. I was singing probably as soon as I could speak, and there's home footage of me at the park, and I'd be narrating kind of what was going on in song. I'm going down the slide.
My daughters are doing that.
It was ridiculous, really. I don't know how my parents got through it. But they luckily kind of fostered that within me and kept it going.
Because you weren't asking questions, at least.
Exactly.
And that's all that matters.
Well, I still had a lot of questions. I would just ask them in song,
I was
of
just going
course.
to say that it could have been like sing form. Like, why is that slide slower today?
Exactly.
Katie, just go down the slide.
Exactly. But my cousin was in musical theater, and he went on to work on cruise ships and do different shows in Toronto. So my parents waited quite a while to have kids, so my cousins were older than I was. So it was kind of cool. I always got to see what they were doing and base what I was going to do off of that. Exactly. Yeah. So, he went off to theater school, and I definitely did musical theater for quite a big part of my childhood. That's where a lot of my music came from.
Right
but it wasn't really until, I would say, grade 12. Well, when I picked up the guitar, and it was the summer between grade 8 and grade 9. That's really when that love for just music versus musical theater came for me. Because it was still, I loved the storytelling aspect of it, I guess. That was my main thing. And with any art form I go into, it is really based on the story for me. So it wasn't until I got really into songwriting that I was able to mesh the two worlds together. And the fact that I could get on a stage and tell my own story was really cool to me too.
No doubt, yeah.
Yeah, after playing characters for however many years, it was cool to get up there as Katie.
So music for you, when you said you did a lot of musical theater, but was that your introduction to music, or was music like you listened to a lot of? We've talked to a few people that say like, oh, my parents listened to music and I would hear what they would be playing. Or I guess that even you said, well, you would walk around and sing. So it was just like an innate kind of like thing you wanted to do.
Yeah.
But I'm curious about the connection between theater music and story, because obviously theater, there's story being told.
Yeah.
But the songs in theater are like a tool to tell the overarching story.
Exactly.
Whereas like, each individual song, each individual lyric in a song can almost tell its own story. So how did you...
For me, well, it was a thing too where I grew up with a dad who only listened to rock basically exclusively, and my mom was country and yacht rock. So I also grew up with storytelling in those two different realms too, where rock, it really can tell like a true story, or it could be about nothing.
Yeah.
And country music, especially at the time, like the early 2000s, was really rooted in storytelling still. So I think I always was pulled towards musicals that were kind of the more individual stories. I've always liked ensemble musicals where you're getting more of a big view picture versus just like following one story. I get bored with that sometimes. Okay. So I think that's why I like personal songwriting, because I'm able to just grasp the little stories versus having to tell like a big overarching thing. If I had to sit down and write a musical about just one thing, I don't think I
find it incredible that people can, like playwrights, like, to me, that's just, I don't know how they do that.
I don't know.
Sit and imagine the dialogue, or, people, book author as well, but, it's something about a playwright just seems like so specific,
exactly.
And you really gotta know how to do that. It seems like wizardry to me, I guess, but, a song is very, one little thing. It's just, packaged nicely, I guess.
Exactly. Yeah. I think it's kind of the difference of you have a good song versus like good parts of a musical.
Yeah.
If that's, you kind of have your slower parts and then your bigger parts, and I think with a song you can just encompass all of that in a really nice bite-sized form. So, yeah.
Okay. So, wanting to tell stories, I have to ask you, because if you could... What are the stories you want to tell? Like, is it just, the artist's desire to connect to others?
Yeah.
Or is there a story that like ultimately would, like your opus, where you'd be like, if I could tell that, like, I don't want to get into like existentialism and all that stuff, but like,
definitely.
What are the main stories you want to tell? What's your voice? What you feel? And you still developing it maybe, or maybe you're like, nah, I never want to change. I just want to tell these stories.
Yeah, for me, it's a lot of introspective work for sure. Which it's funny because I have started looking out at the outside world to write music, and that's the songs that people tend to like a little more than my like woe is me kind of introspective pieces. So. Like, I just recently wrote a song about a house. It's called $750,000. It was a house that I live across the street from for 2 years, and I just fell in love with it. And come to find out, it was designed by a very popular architect here in the city. But yeah, I fell in love with this house, and the whole song is just me saying if I had $750,000, I would have the red front door and the tree out front.
Right on.
Just the different pieces of it that I really admired. And I could still pull it together at the end where it came back to just being like a girl trying to achieve this thing that really seems a little bit out of reality with the way the world is. So I guess I've always loved kind of the coming of age stories, even in film. So I think I probably kind of reach to that.
Yeah.
Still pulling a lot of like real world from it as well, but trying to connect the through line of my life to the bigger picture.
That's very cool. Do you think of that, like when you write a song, do you think of it like visually ever? Because I do that. I can, and I think we talked about this on the show before, like I can imagine a scene maybe corresponding to a line.
Yeah.
Or, you know what I mean? And it can happen in like a timeline. Maybe, you know, there can be like jumping between scenes. Do you try to paint those pictures in your songs ever? Or is it, you know, is it more of a linear approach? Like,
it's kind of a funny thing. My friend is like a visual artist. So we were chatting one time. She said, yeah, like, can't you just picture like an apple in your brain? And for some reason, apparently there's two ways the brain kind of works.
Do you have the thing where you can't picture
I can't
things?
picture it.
Okay,
I see
I've
it
heard of
written
that,
as a word a lot of the time.
Okay,
I
yeah.
was very good at spelling in elementary school, so I kind of wonder if that was what it was.
Yeah.
So for me, I almost see it on like a scroll, like it's as if someone opened a scroll in my brain, and I'm seeing it more in a way. I like the way that words sound together, the like the way it feels coming out of my mouth even sometimes.
I feel that.
I do that as well.
Yeah. I don't know if it's like vibrations maybe or what it is, but it feels resonant a lot of the time for me. So it's something where it just kind of feels good when I'm writing it, and I can't really picture it a lot of the time. It's weird.
That's cool. You're just kind of following your feelings.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny because like before we officially started the podcast, we were talking about, and we wanted to get back into this, the magic of kind of taking something intangible and kind of metaphysical, like, and trying to create something that then is shared, but still kind of remains a little bit hard to nail down.
Yeah.
So the fact that like one of your joys in songwriting and kind of lyricism and all those things, I think lyricism is probably not a word.
Works for me.
But is the sound, the feel, but the je ne sais quoi, like you don't know.
Exactly.
It's like the thing that just is fun.
It really is kind of a visceral feeling for me when I write. A lot of the time, I haven't really been able to sit down and say I'm going to write a song today. It just kind of hits me.
Yeah.
And then I just have to do it. Whatever my plan was for the day is kind of foiled. I just have to go do it. Which sucks if I was ever trying to like write on a timeline or do anything like that, because I really can't force it, because it never, back to our buzzword of the day, never feels authentic for me if I try and do that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and I find those songs are the ones that just stay in my voice memos or stay in my notes app, and I don't share them. And I don't know what the boundary there is for me stopping it a lot of the time. But it's like, as soon as I write a song, I typically know if I'm going to play it for other people or not.
Interesting.
And then a lot of them just kind of get filed away for me to listen to when I'm bored on an airplane one day, or just random stuff like that.
Have you ever gone back to one though that you were like no, and actually been like sometimes 6 months, maybe a long enough time where it's like new to you again, and you go, oh, that actually was really, I want to revisit it.
I had that recently. I flew back from Ontario at the end of September. So for the one part of the flight, I did just listen to old voice memos, and I was trying to clean up my phone. And there were some things I went back to, and I was like, oh, why did you judge yourself so harshly with that one?
That's interesting.
Or I think I've been lucky enough that a lot of the songs that I do love and play came very quickly to me. Like I would write it in a day, and then it would be done. And I'm kind of bad about like working for a song, because that's when I feel like I'm pulling teeth and like really can't get what I want to say out. I think if I feel passionately enough about something, it should just be able to flow out of me. So that's something I need to get better at, is like going back and working for those songs that I'm like, I know they have something there, I don't know what they need.
Yeah, I think it does take some practice to do that as well, because I always felt the same. It feels like, well, if I'm really trying, is it coming from a real place? And it's pretty much impossible, I think, to recapture the feeling when you are inspired by something. And I'm the same. I want to, if I get good lyrics or something, I want to keep that moving as long as I can, because once I get out of that headspace, I might never capture that exact feeling again. But do you find like it's harder to share songs that might feel more intimate or maybe a little too personal, or you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've said I'm kind of lucky because I'm living the best of both worlds right now. All my family's back in Ontario, but then I'm here. So I've been lucky enough to establish kind of my crew here that I hang with and I go to for feedback and really value their opinions. But they're not my parents, and they're not my grandparents, and they're not my family, which a lot of my songs, even if it's not even about my family, it's still something I'm like, oh, I'm scared to show mom this. Like,
I know, for sure.
Yeah, whereas to share it with my friends here, it's really nice. I enjoy it. I think it's a fun, even if it was just me writing it, it still feels like a very collaborative process, because just at open mics or even a gig or anything like that, it's just me and my acoustic guitar a lot of the time. So if there was ever a musician out in the crowd that was like, oh, I really want to play drums on that song, I would be so, like, down for that. Like, I would love to let other people in on them, because I think that would be really, really neat. Whereas when I'm at home, they just know me more than I know me a lot of the time, I think.
Okay.
So, yeah, I don't know why. It's kind of fun, though. I get to trial run them while I'm here, and then I, like, bring them home for the real critics, you know?
Totally.
For mom and dad.
Yeah. It's like they know a version of you, and maybe the version of yourself now is kind of evolving, and it's maybe a little scary to show them that.
Exactly.
Or, you know, I don't want to say a swear word in a song that my mom's gonna hear.
Exactly.
Which, you know, weird things like that.
That way?
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah. It's maybe there's a part of us that we keep from our parents a little bit because we don't. You know, we're still their children, right? So.
And all that to be said, like, they are the most supportive
No,
too. That's the crazy part
I
about
have
it.
that as well.
It's
I'm
such
lucky.
an internal thing, really, where I'm like, oh, I don't know about this one.
Yeah.
Do you think you're more interested in, like, really impressing them? Like, or you feel like maybe that's part of it, that with your friend group around here, like, I don't know, it's more collaborative, but if you bring it to your parents and you want them to, like, be like, yeah, you really, like, I don't know.
Want approval from them or something?
I'm not
you know?
even really sure.
Yeah,
Let's get into
because
that.
I know.
Yeah, sorry, and we're not, not trying to put you on the spot.
Good, you're good.
It's interesting to me as well because, you know, I do that too.
Yeah, because I know that I know that they'll approve of whatever I do. I could write the worst song and my mom would still root me on for it.
For sure.
So yeah, I'm not. It's a weird thing.
It's hard to be vulnerable. That's what we
Well, I was
talk
gonna
about
say,
a lot here too.
I wonder if you touched on it too. It's almost like it's like when people used to, like, write letters to home.
Yes.
Which is a thing that just doesn't happen anymore. People used to do that, you know.
Yeah.
Not that it was in my generation. I'm not that old. But, like, people would, like, write a letter to home, and it would be kind of like a summary of, like, where you're at right now.
Yeah.
Like, you know. And then there's maybe at the time, like, a wait period of when they write you back, and they're kind of like, happy to hear you enrolled in this or something. It's like your letter to home. Whenever you show them a song, it's almost like your letter of, like, where you're at right now.
That's true. That's true.
You know, I guess my assumption was like, oh, it's maybe concerned with negative response. Maybe it's just
No.
the pressure of them knowing, like, this is your journey right now.
Yeah.
This is where you're
that
at.
could be part of it. Yeah. Yeah.
Answer us now, Katie.
Heavier.
We must know.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's such a huge part of art. It's just creating who's the audience and how are they going to react to it. But it sounds like you were saying, you know, if I played a show and someone came up and said, I'd love to play drums on that. Like, so as much as you are right now kind of acoustic guitar, singer-songwriter, it sounds like you are looking to collaborate. Like, do you love that side of art, collaboration?
I love that side of it. And it's a thing, I've been chatting with different people about it, because when you're coming to it with, like, I have basically an album's written at this point where I want to do something with it, but I just haven't recorded it yet because I don't know how big I want to make it or how intimate I want to keep it.
Yeah.
It's one of those things where I'm like, I would love to just, like, I wish I could do everything.
Right.
Yeah.
I wish I could release these, like, really stripped down raw versions of it just to get it out there into the world, but then you also want to make your mark in this kind of big grand way. It's
That is true. It's hard to navigate too.
Balance that I'm really trying to figure out. Yeah.
How do I kick it off? I guess.
Yeah.
Oh, that's the worst. The worst thing to get stuck in your head on is, like, how to, like you said, what do we want to focus on with this podcast? Like, you want to introduce yourself to people.
Yeah.
And hopefully we'll do that. And hopefully if there's ways things you're thinking of that we haven't covered, because that's really part of what we want to do here. But also, like, as an artist, like, we're always kind of reintroducing ourselves to people. We're always kind of introducing and reintroducing.
Yeah.
And I think for people, I believe we're all artists in our own way. So I don't think there's like this chasm between like, I'm not an artist. No, I think we all are in our own way. We just haven't figured it out yet. But for those who are artists who are like kind of living in that world where they're always creating, that can be a stressful thing to always have to introduce and reintroduce.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
How do you... It's like picking an outfit, So
It
like
really
you
is.
trying to pick how you want to record a song, should it be big, should it be small, should it be intimate, is like kind of picking the outfit to go to that thing, like a school reunion, you haven't seen everyone in 10 years.
Exactly.
And they're going to be like, oh, okay, you chose that outfit.
Yeah. The big thing was, too, for a long time, since it was just me and my guitar, I couldn't really figure out what my genre was.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
Everything I was writing, especially since I had like so much influence from both sides of it with my parents, and like I grew up going to country jams with my grandparents, where I was the youngest one in the room by probably 60 years.
Yeah.
But I was learning those like old
That's
classic
amazing, though.
country
Yeah.
tunes and
Yeah.
influenced by that sound, and then I'm loving the new takes on it, whether it's the Sierra Farrells of the world or the Billy Strings and the Jason Isbells, like just anything like that. I really didn't know what that was called because I loved the rock, I loved the country, but it was really story focused. And then I stumbled upon an Instagram page called Women of Americana.
Americana.
It
Yeah, I
was-
was going to say the same.
It was about a year ago, and it was like my brain exploded. It was like everything I had ever really been looking
That's it.
for and wanted to be a part of. It was right there. And I was like, oh my God. And weirdly enough, all the artists that I loved were
Nice.
featured on this page. And it was like this thing I never knew the terminology for, but I just knew I wanted it really badly.
That's interesting, and I had a similar like awakening to like Americana because I grew up with country, and I didn't always like feel like I was vibing with
Exactly.
all the things I was hearing country, but I loved a lot of the folkier or bluegrassy type of stuff.
Yeah.
And I feel like Jillian Welch is probably going to show up on your Americana
yes.
list. Yeah, so I'm huge into that style as
Yeah.
well. But that's interesting. I feel like we all must go through that. Me and Joel talk about that too. Like how do we put ourselves into a certain box? It
Exactly.
sucks. You go, I don't want to do that, and you can try to fight all these certain things that come with doing music at a certain level, but
Yeah.
there is a time where people will want you to kind of focus or put yourself in a descriptive box,
Yeah.
and that can be tricky. So that's cool that you found something that you felt like you fit into. Yeah.
And it feels like a bit of a cheat code in a way too, like specifically Americana, because I'll write like a rock song and I know I want it to be big. I'm like, well, if I put it on an album and it was an Americana album, realistically, it all kind of fits into it in the grand scheme of things,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know?
Yeah, you can throw a rock song on
Yeah.
an Americana album, then you can have an
Exactly.
acoustic and a mandolin. You know
Exactly.
what it is? Yeah,
I've
versatile
had
that way.
Southeastern on like Jason Isbell's record probably 40 times in the last 2 weeks.
Wow.
Like I just keep playing it and playing it. Something about like this season, it
Yeah.
just really is the exact same as the album. It just
Yeah.
works.
Mandolin music is great for this time of year, in my
Yes,
opinion.
yes.
Into the
I
Wild,
love that.
Into the Wild soundtrack specifically
Yes.
is like this is the time of year.
Like
for
the
me.
movie Into the Wild?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Chris
I'm gonna-
McCandless's story.
Yeah.
Eddie Vedder did a soundtrack for that.
That's
It's got hard on it, but it's got a lot of great songs. And to me, it's like that's a fall driving
Okay.
day. Yeah.
I'm definitely going to be...
Anyways, sorry.
Yeah,
to
no,
that's
you're
cool.
good.
Break off
'cause
on a
I've-
tangent.
I've always been like a different seasons for music
I
too.
agree, yeah, same here.
There's certain stuff I can't listen to if the sun's not out or that
Yeah.
sort
Yeah.
of thing. Yeah, so hearing his album specifically, it's just incredible because it really encompasses like every piece of the music
Mm-hmm.
sphere that I want to cover, at least right now.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
But that's nice though, because there's the two sides to like genre or kind of figuring out like, I hate to say it, but like what box you might be in.
Yeah.
It can either be we tend to look at it as artists as like a restricting thing, but it can actually be freeing.
Exactly.
Because once you kind of figure out what your voice is going to be for this time, then it helps you to kind of be a little, because as artists, I don't know, I'll speak for artists in general,
Yeah.
not all like this, but sometimes the mind can be chaotic and a little bit noisy. And so to have a little bit of a pathway,
Structure.
a little structure can be okay.
Yeah.
Because sometimes it can be very freeing in that you're like, oh, cool. Like, and then you're looking at other artists going, I love the sound of this. I love the tone of this. Okay, like you have a little bit of a trail instead of trying to completely blaze your own trail.
Exactly.
Where you're just like getting whipped by thorn bushes.
Yeah, that's an authenticity thing, though. Right? You want to be different. You want to stand out.
Yeah.
And you don't. Maybe I don't want to be considered with there because I put a trumpet in my songs or whatever. Right? It's like yeah. But
then it's okay to be like Americana with trumpet too.
Exactly.
That's right.
Because like no matter how like, and that's the thing. Like I think as artists, like wanting to be unique.
Yeah.
You still will be.
Yeah.
You know, you are you. You're never going to not be you. And like your voice
Exactly.
is always going to be your own, even if you, I mean, you could even cover songs, I guess, right?
Yeah.
And speaking of cover songs, I wanted to talk about your love of Alanis Morissette.
Oh, yes.
When did that start? And because, so for those watching or listening, Katie does open mics and performances, and you've done some amazing covers of Alanis Morissette songs.
Thank you.
So, and Alanis Morissette being, like, we're Canadian, we're, depending on where you're watching this, you know, an icon in kind of worldwide, but also for Canadians, I think, as someone who really broke new ground on being authentic.
Yeah.
And, you know, being like a woman in the industry and just being a rock star. So,
Yes. I've always wanted a place to talk about Alanis Morissette.
I love her too. So yeah.
Really, for me, it all started. Shout out to FM 96. That was my dad's classic rock station back in London, Ontario.
Oh,
and,
my dad grew up near London too. He's actually
no
from Hensel, which is near Kitchener.
Oh, no way.
So farm
I
town
live
there.
right smack between those two.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Small world.
It really is. It
White
really
bean capital of the
is.
world. Shout out.
We're probably related. We're probably all related. Yeah, it's Canada. Our population is like, you know, 80,000. No, I'm kidding.
But I grew up, and I really didn't hear a lot of women's voices on that station in particular. They've gotten a lot better about it now, but it was like the same 3 July Talk songs over and over, and then Alanis.
Nice.
And Ironic always stuck out to me as a kid, Hand in My Pocket, like anything off of Jagged Little Pill, really. But it was always just sing-along songs, and I think Alanis nails that, where the songs themselves musically are so brilliant that anybody can sing along with it, hum along with it, and you can kind of zone out to it. Or you can opt into like the bonus pack and really listen to the lyrics and unveil like this whole different song that you really didn't realize was going on. Like Hands Clean is one of my favorite examples of that, where it was a hit because people could bop their head along with it.
Yeah.
And it was just such easy listening. But then you really look at the lyrics, and it's not easy listening at all.
She tricked
it's
you
horrific.
into listening to some heavy stuff. Yeah.
Exactly. So as a kid, I was just kind of a very passive enjoyer of her. But then it really was my dad who kept telling me, Katie, you know, if you want to sing and you want people to like kind of take it seriously, you got to have a guitar in your hands. And a lot of really good music advice has come from my dad. Awesome. He's not musical himself at all, just like a music enjoyer. So I'm always a little bit reluctant to like take his advice. And then every time I do, it's exactly what I was supposed to do.
I think it's better than our advice because we get so like in our own heads about certain things.
Exactly.
And he can just say, I know nothing about it, but I like this.
Exactly.
I like when they have a guitar.
Exactly.
I like when they like scream.
That is a good perspective to have. Almost like an innocent perspective. Not like bogged down by all the like ideas.
We get too convoluted, I think, with time. Right?
Exactly. And I still have certain songs from my childhood that I put them on and like, this is Dad's song. Like there's probably a list of like 10 of them that I'm like, these played in the car every time I was in there. And Alanis fell on that list a lot of the time. So it wasn't really until I got into university, I was freshly 19, and I really just like nosedived into all of it, especially Jagged Little Pill. And then through doing my own research, because I can never enjoy anything just passively, I have to figure out everything about it. I was learning that she was 19 when she wrote it.
That's insane.
Right?
I never knew that. That's insane.
It's crazy. She was 19 years old when she wrote Jagged Little Pill, and that was when I really started looking into it as like serious music, and I had never related to something more in my life. Just to have a piece of material that almost explained everything that I was feeling and any emotion that I'd been like, does anybody else ever feel like this? To just have it laid out like that, I couldn't imagine being like a young girl at the time that it came out and just how empowering that would have been.
Yeah.
I felt it recently with Olivia Rodrigo's new release where I'm the same age as her and I felt that piece of it. I was like, you are encompassing exactly what it's like to be a 19, 20-year-old girl right now. So with Alanis, I almost took pride in it too because it's just... It just is so good in the fact that she's Canadian and like we even just have that little shared piece of it. It's just brilliant.
Yeah, like someone like me did that. I could do that, you know. And
yeah, exactly.
That's amazing. She was 19. Honestly, those songs are so clever and just the lyrics.
Right.
Yeah, I remember, you know, when I was a kid, even listening to her and thinking like, whoa, like I feel it through her songs, like
just pretty groundbreaking.
Yeah.
Like I think I remember realizing she was Canadian. Like I think my brother was the one that bought like the Alanis CD and CD.
What's that?
It was so fun. It was so fun. And you know, popping that thing in and then like song after song after song, I was always blown away by artists. It's not to say that like, you know, if people will say like one hit wonders and things like that, like again, we love to label things. Yeah. But like an artist who can have an album where like you listen to track 1 and you're like, wow, track 2, wow, track 3, wow. That's when it's like a groundbreaking album where like it's just she's captured something in every song from different perspectives on different they're not all like heartbreak songs. They're you know, written from different perspectives on different.
It's got range.
Like religious
Tons
dramas
of range.
to heartbreak to like it's
so that's when you're kind of like, okay, like this is a groundbreaking thing. And then as I don't remember how old I was at the time, but being like, wait, she's Canadian?
Right.
And it just, it's the funny thing that we do as
we
Canadians.
Always love that. We're like, whoa. Basically, I did that.
Exactly. I'm basically her neighbor. I know her.
I'm sure we have a friend I have a friend that probably knows Alanis Morissette. And I think, but I love that about Canada. I love the kind of small town feel of Canada, and that like our celebrity system's completely different. Like, we don't tend to like put them up on these crazy godlike status. We're just kind of like, that's a really successful person that I admire.
Right.
Often.
It's cool.
But so you had something happen fairly recently related to doing an Alanis Morissette cover.
Yes.
That got a little attention and I think in the situation you tell me about it because it was in New York, right?
It was in New York City. So I had mentioned previously my best friend lives down there. She goes to the Institute of American Musical Theater down there.
Ooh, sounds cool.
It's very neat. She goes to school on Broadway.
Wow.
It's really really cool.
Wow.
So she just started that last year, and I've been down there. I've made 2 trips down there since. So I went back. It would have been about a year ago now to see Alanis play in Connecticut.
No way.
It was like my dream festival. It was Hozier opening for Alanis, opening for John Mayer.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
Like, who got into my Spotify?
Wow. Hozier.
It was incredible. Sobbed my way through the whole show.
Wow.
So when I went back down just recently in May, I was helping Alicia move out. Our big grand plan was that I would drive down there. We would drive back. She would stay with me in Fredericton for a couple days, and then she would fly home from there because we wanted a nice New England road trip.
Yeah, for sure.
So at this point, it would have been my 3rd time in the city. I went when I was in high school, too. So I felt like I had done the tourist stuff, you know? I was I'm ready to live like a real New Yorker. I went to her bodega with her, and like we got our deli sandwiches. We were like, this is the life, you know? And then she said, hey, Katie, I have a show this afternoon. You go out and explore the city. You do your thing. So all I really wanted was the Hard Rock Cafe to get a pin. But you still have to go through Times Square to do that. So I very begrudgingly...
Was it for your dad?
No, it was for me. I'm a bit of a pin collector myself.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. But like begrudgingly, I don't really love crowds like that. Yeah. Like when I can't
pretty intimidating.
Dip out of anywhere, I don't like it. When I'm a subway stop away from home, I don't like it. And at that point, I had been staying in a hostel too. So I'm lucky enough I live by myself when I'm here. So I'm still participating in my childlike ways. I'm always singing in my house. whatever it is. So the fact that I had been in a hostel, and then you go outside and there's people on every street corner, and then you go in a subway to commute and there's people on the subway, and then the place you get to, there's more people. I was like, I haven't sang in like 5 days, and I'm going ballistic. I'm going crazy because I'm watching my best friend get up on a stage and perform, and I'm like, oh my God, I just need to sing. I would have, like, if I saw a guitar on the street, I would have picked it up at that point. Like, I was desperate to just hum a note and not look like a crazy person. So I was walking through Times Square, and you're kind of like pulled in by all the lights and the glitz and the glam of it all. And then I was like, okay, it's subway station time. I start walking back to my subway, and then I heard an acoustic guitar off in the distance, and it was like a call from God. I was
an angel beckoning you.
It was. I was like, what is that? Like, it was the most desperate thing ever.
On the wind.
So I see this big sign across the street that says, "Come sing with me."
Wow.
And I was like, you don't have to ask me twice. Yeah. So I walk over there. My favorite part of this whole story is that I'm wearing my Mercy Buckets and Dad Patrol shirt in it.
Representing.
So now,
shout out to those great bands.
I've chatted with Trav about it. I'm like, I hope you guys got some sort of traction from that, or at least a Google search. But yeah, so I walk over to what they're doing, and I see a camera set up. Like, I just saw a tripod with a phone on it. And he had his guitar there. His name on YouTube is Guitaro 5000, but his real name's Reggie. So Reggie was there. I had seen videos of that kind before.
Yeah.
I don't think I had actually ever seen his videos specifically, but if I was on Facebook, I had seen like kind of similar ones.
I saw specifically like one of his videos just weeks before that. So
weird.
To see yours was like,
then
whoa.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I saw a sign that said, "Come sing with me for free" at the bottom was the big thing.
Yeah.
Because when you're in Times Square, you're on scam patrol.
Oh, right.
Like, you think everything's a scam.
Yeah.
So I'm like, there's no way.
Right.
But then I saw this young girl get up and she sang, and everything seemed normal, and she went back to her mom, and I was like, okay, this seems legit. So I'm standing there, and I wait for a couple people to sing, and I'm getting a little bit more nervous with each part because we're in Times Square. Like, it's one thing to just mess it up on a camera, but like I'm belting it out in Times Square, you know?
Yeah, it's kind of a big deal.
And I'm by myself. Like, my friend's a 40-minute train ride from me at that point, so I'm like, okay, well, nobody knows me, so I guess I'll just do this and hope for the best. So I got up there, I said my hellos, and he said I had a good handshake, which, like...
Okay, gave you confidence right off the bat.
One thing, being in the Fredericton music world, I started shaking hands a lot more often, and very quickly was like, oh, that is a bad handshake, Katie. So it was something I had actively been working on for like a year at that point.
I'm still haunted by bad handshakes I've had.
Right?
Just it was just too noodly, you know.
Exactly. So the fact that he commented on it, I was like, yes, okay.
The work has paid off.
Exactly. So, yeah, I get up there. I said to him, "Do you know Ironic by Alanis Morissette?" Because I'd kind of been sitting there and judging the crowd a little bit. I've learned to read my demographic a little bit better as I've played a little bit more. So I was like, oh, well, my favorite is Not the Doctor. Like, I love that song. But I was like, I don't know if people would really know that one to stop, or if he would even know it to play it. Because he's pulling up the chord charts and just learning a lot of the songs on the fly.
Super
like,
impressive.
Hopes that like he can figure out the song as he goes, kind of thing. So we kind of had our pleasantries back and forth, and then he goes, okay, let's sing. So I sang, and it really was a surreal kind of blackout moment. I wasn't expecting it to be, but it was something that really put me into perspective of like, wow, like this is what like little Katie dreamed of. Like this, even though it is just like, at that point I didn't know it was going to be a YouTube video. Like, I didn't know kind of the reach it was going to have. Just purely the fact that I was in New York City in Times Square, like singing a song was just like mind-blowing for me. Sure. Even now, to put it into words, I'm like, it's just still so bizarre to me that like it happened. And it was one of those things that as soon as it was done, I was like, I gotta tell my mom. And like,
that's amazing. Yeah.
Right? It was just the coolest thing. So the really beautiful part of it was as I was standing there, I'm looking around, and a lot of the women that stopped were like women in their 40s, and I'm watching them all sing along, and I'm seeing that like spark of like their youth and like their when they were my age. Like, it was just so cool to see how that song specifically like really brings women together. I loved that. So then I just like walked off into the night basically afterwards. I said thank you and I went off on my way. I asked him at the end, I went, what is this for? Like, what is your name? And he goes, I'm Guitaro 5000. And I went, okay, cool. So I went home and I look him up.
I was going to say, you must have.
Like, it was as I was walking away, actually. I'm looking him up and I'm like, oh my God, he has like over 1 million subscribers on YouTube. This is, wow. And then I look him up on Facebook, which is like, he's cracked the code on Facebook. Oh, wow. He knows how to work that Facebook algorithm like clockwork. Like 1.7 million followers on there, something ridiculous. Like, just like huge reach on every platform. 1.2 million on TikTok. So months go by, I see nothing. And I'm keeping tabs on his YouTube. I probably gave him quite a few views during that time. Just thinking, I wonder if this is going to come out.
Yeah.
And then at the end of one of his main channel videos, there was just like a montage of different singers from one day. And he showed just like a clip of me there. And it didn't have my voice or anything in it. It was just like purely montage. So I was like, okay, that's my little send-off. Like, that's my memento of look when I sang in Times Square, that little 3-second clip. So then I was out for a little, I'd just gotten back to Fredericton. I was out for brunch with Danielle Doiron, friend of the show. And I looked down at my phone towards the end of brunch and I go, oh my God. I'd gotten an email that's like, hey, Katie, it's Reggie's team. We put you on our YouTube yesterday. Go check it out. And I want to say they did a great thing where they like attached a PDF as well. That was like, hey, here's resources, like, if there's, like, negative comments, like, here's how you deal with it. Here's this. Cool. Like, nice, it was a very, like, mental health kind of approach with it, which I was really impressed with. I was thinking about that. I was like, I lucked out where it was a very, very positive response.
Very positive.
Like, I am overwhelmed by how positive it is. It was really kind of a bizarre experience to, like, go to a comment section and kind of that validation that you have always kind of hoped for. And you get very minute pieces of kind of throughout your life. Yeah. To just have it there and I can read it, like it's a very bizarre feeling. Yeah. And when people are like, oh, she appears so confident. She seems like she would be a good friend. Like, just very, very kind things.
Yeah, very kind.
It's weird to sit there and be like, oh, yay, like, you're like, yay, that's what I'm hoping you're getting from me when you're looking at
As
me.
As opposed to, like, AI.
Exactly.
This is AI.
Exactly. It's like, yay, it's working. It's working.
Video's reversed.
Yeah, how validating, like, really, truly. Because when the video popped up and, I was watching it, and then, like, as you're watching a video, you're just, what I habitually scroll comments. But now Meta does the thing where they summarize the comments at the top.
No.
Have you seen that now?
That's got to be hilarious.
Well, anyway, and when they're good, like, yours would literally be like, people are reminiscing on how beautiful this performance was, how, like, friendly, and that's the thing. So I was reading two places that come to mind where I've really run into, like, very positive community.
Yeah.
And it's always so nice. Because right now, like, it can just be so gross. But if you ever watch on YouTube videos to help sleep, like sleep music or whatever, for whatever reason, the comments are all so beautiful and kind.
Pleasant.
It's like, I hope you're having a beautiful life. Like, don't worry, you'll get through it. And then reading the comments on your video, I literally didn't find, there's not a single negative comment. It was like just all like, wow. Like,
thank you.
Like you said, confidence, her like kindness shines through. Like,
thank you.
It was just really, really cool to vicariously experience. Through reading that, being like, great, that's amazing. Like, I'm so glad, that you had such positive feedback.
To have this moment of my life that was like, it would have been so instrumental even if it wasn't videotaped for me. Yeah. The fact that I have footage of like this really, really magical moment of my life in this like high production kind of value, it's so cool. It's so cool.
It's an amazing story, it really is. Like, all the things had to line up just right for you to be there. Your friend had
Just
to be like, go out and
take a walk,
explore the town.
Exactly.
And if you didn't, take the risk of being brave in crowds, you wouldn't have missed out, right?
Yeah, and I think back to even like, I had only thrown out the idea of going to New York as a joke. We were like, we haven't seen each other in so long. And I was like, yeah, if only I could drive down when school was done, Mm-hmm. And that's what it all like stemmed from.
Just kind of on a whim.
Exactly.
And in some ways, it reflects a little bit how like songs materialize. Sometimes it's very whimsical. It's very, like I'm always in awe of this strange universe that we live in and how things materialize, how things happen. But, someone like yourself, you can see the stars aligning in that, right? Like even that it was Alanis.
Right.
That like you were like, oh, I'm going to sing an Alanis Morissette song that, arguably, I don't know if you would agree, someone who was highly influential into you wanting to perform, you wanting to sing. And then also having that connection to the audience while singing it.
Exactly.
Being in one of the most like known places on the planet.
I think about that a lot. Like if I picked a different song, would it have been a different story? And I think it really would have been. I think something about that song specifically is like what people think of when they think of Alanis, which is really cool.
Yeah, but like, not to discredit, like Alanis is great and it's a great song. But if it hadn't been you, though, it could have, like, because that's important too. Like, it could have been probably anyone. I'm sure lots of people have sung that song.
Yeah.
But your connection to the song, you're one of those people that you're not going to just sing it like generic. Like it's important to you.
Yeah.
People sense that it's important to you. You performed it well, like sang it beautifully. But like also, it's just kind of. It's funny how art can kind of come out of other people, but it's almost like it's yours too.
Yeah. Well, that song in particular really is like, it doesn't, I don't know how to word this. Like if I had to pick a cover song, it's the song for me. Yeah. I'm like, it feels like a song that like is not mine, but it feels like I
you have a lot of personal connection to it.
Yeah. So. It was the first song I played when I got to Fredericton. Like, that was my first open mic song where I was like, I hope this one, like, kind of gets the attention. And it's always been that song for me that I'm like, if I need to reel a crowd in, I play Ironic. And it kind of has that magnetic force with it. Something about it. Yeah, so I really don't know what else I would have done. I'm glad I picked that one.
Yeah. It all lined up. There's this thing in skateboarding. It's a flow state of mind, I think they call it. Like where like a skateboarder will have a run where like, because I grew up skateboarding, where like their mind just shuts off, and when they look back on that moment, they can't even really remember. And it's a weird thing where almost like their energy is in line with like the universe is in line with this and this. Yeah. Just everything lines up. It's like the stars align, and you're just flowing with. There's no effort. It's just you're just letting it. Spill through you, and it just becomes this moment of like you can't define it. It's like there's no words to really define those kinds of moments. You've got yours on camera, which is cool. So you can at least go back and reflect.
Exactly. And that was a weird thing watching it back the first time. I was watching it, I was like, oh my God, Katie, don't embarrass yourself, because I forgot what the conversations were even about. Like months had gone by at the time. So I was like, what did I say? Like I had zero recollection. Yeah. So thank God I like didn't ramble too hard with it.
but you're right. There could be that pressure of like all of a sudden you get an email, it's going up on YouTube, and you go, wait, what did I do? And how did it come across?
The crazy part is the YouTube side of it. When I first looked at the video on YouTube, it was at like 17,000 views, I think. And at a certain point, it maxed out at about like 45,000, I'd say.
Wow.
And then it wasn't until like maybe a week or two later, I was on my phone and I think I was watching a video or something, and I just kept getting notifications like so-and-so followed you on Instagram, like one after another for about 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Wow. To the point that I was getting annoyed. I was like, what is going on? Because they were all generic accounts. Like it would just kind of be like a middle-aged person it was a private account. They would have like 3 posts and not many followers. And I was like, what are all these bot accounts doing following? Like, what is this? I really thought, I was Googling, like, is there like a spam going on Instagram right now? What is going on? Because I was like, why are all these I thought so, honestly. So then my dad sent me, he was like, Katie, you're on TikTok. One of his coworkers, I think, had sent it to him. So I was like, oh my God, if I'm on TikTok, I'm probably on Facebook. And that's when I went over, and it was at 200,000 views. And that already, I was like, oh my God. And about 100 comments at the time, and that was overwhelming. And then at this point now, I think the last I looked at it, it was over 2 million views.
What?
On
Wow.
Facebook specifically. So the YouTube side of it was super nice to like be able to dip my toes in the pool and like get the little feel of it.
Yeah.
Be like, okay, this is what like people perceiving you is like. Before I got thrown into the Facebook world of it.
All over the world perceiving you and deciding that you're the person they're going to talk about in that moment.
Facebook can be a brutal place. My goodness.
Very much so.
I think there's a quality about you that reached through all that stuff, though. Like a nice warm quality about you that I think probably everyone gets off of you. That I felt it through the screen. You know what I mean? So if you went up there like some arrogant, like I'm going to wreck this, like probably it might still be at a couple thousand views. You know what I mean? But I think that your authenticity came across.
Thank you.
There you go. Yeah, agreed, 100%. Yeah, so I think like the comments and the kindness and stuff is kind of the energy you put into the world. Like I believe in kind of karma, and like it's coming back. Like from people being given a positive feeling through what you did, your performance, right? And then they want to bring it back. Like
that was the cool thing too. Like I was getting DMs, which I've never experienced that before. But like, hey, your video really like got me out of this, or like you made me feel good for this day.
Yeah.
And I'd never experienced that before, so it was really cool to be able to like chat with people.
Yeah.
Be like, oh my goodness, thank you. And then the fact that they came and like gave me a follow and like stuck around for the stuff that I'm doing too, that was even cooler. Like the fact that now they're listening to my own music that I'm putting on there. That's really neat for me.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, such an exciting story, and well-deserved like moment to have that happen, and
thank you.
Hopefully, and I'm sure just the beginning of cool moments like that.
I hope so.
And it's so cool that you see a little bit of that, like, oh, people are messaging me saying I had a good day because like I saw your video, and that people who have that kind of position of like getting DMs, you have the ability to say something really positive, like give positive back.
Yeah.
And like that's any platform a person has gives them the ability to really choose how they want to address everyone that wants to address them. Yeah. And so the opportunity to encourage other people, it's pretty cool. And you're a great person to have that opportunity since you're such a sweet person. So
thank you.
Well, we're coming up on close to the 50. I'm trying to keep track of it. I didn't have but I'm watching the clock.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you were, because I'm just
flies
lost.
by every time, and we're always like, oh, well, and we always say this, we'll have you back. We can, we'll chat again.
Yeah, hopefully when you have your new releases.
I would love to do that. I would love to do that.
I'd love to.
Please.
Can't wait to hear those songs.
Thank you.
And then we can also throw to a song. Is there anything that's out there that we can throw to that you'd want to feature as a quick video cutaway? Because I can do that on YouTube.
Yep.
I could send you a demo that I've done with Ted Parrott.
Yeah?
Cool.
Yeah.
What's it?
And if you got the other video, the YouTube one that you got up, Atlantis, we could do that if you wanted to. But
even that would work. Yeah.
Turned 98, he won the lottery and died the next day. It's a black fly in your Chardonnay, a death row pardon 2 minutes too late. And isn't it ironic, don't you think? It's like rain afraid to fly. He packed his suitcase and kissed his kids goodbye. And he waited his whole damn life to take that flight. And as the plane crashed down, he thought, well, isn't this nice? And isn't it ironic, don't you think? It's like rain everything's okay and everything's going right. Yeah, life is a funny way of helping you out whenever you think everything's going wrong and everything blows up in your face. A traffic jam when you're already late. A no smoking sign on your cigarette break. And it's like 10,000 spoons when all you need is a knife. It's meeting the man of my dreams, and then you meet his beautiful wife. And isn't it ironic? Don't you think? A little too ironic. Well, yeah, I really do think it's like rain on your wedding day. Free ride when you've already paid. The good advice that you just didn't take. And who would have thought it figures? You know, life is a funny way of sneaking up on you. Yeah, life is a funny, funny way of helping you out, helping you out. Thank you.
That was fun. I appreciate it. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Is there anything people should be looking for? Oh, we didn't even talk about Fest Forward. My goodness. There's always stuff you want to circle back on. But that's
okay.
a cool festival that's coming up that you are performing at. So let's just, we'll do a quick kind of, not to rush anything.
No, you're good. I'm super duper excited for Fest Forward. Danielle did it about, I think, 2 years ago now, and she had been telling me how great of an opportunity it was. And when the applications came out, I think I had 4 different people send them my way and go,
cool.
Katie,
You
please
gotta
sign
do
up
this.
for this. Please sign up for this.
Yeah.
So again, to have that kind of validation and affirmation, I was
sure.
like, okay, maybe I should do this.
Yes.
So I applied for it and I heard back, and the lineup looks incredible.
It does.
I'm really excited. And the workshop side of it, I just love talking music with people, and
same.
picking brains is like my favorite thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
So the fact that I get a weekend of that,
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
really excited for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You'll love it. So that's coming up. If you're listening to this and you can get to it, go to it. I'm not going to mention dates because we don't want to get like locked into times.
Yeah.
But how should people, if they want to follow you, if they want to check out what you're doing, what's the best way for them to do that?
Yeah, so you can follow me on Instagram at katie.schurman, SCHURMAN, as per mentioned.
As we talked about before the show.
Yep. Get it right, folks.
I post a little bit of everything on there. If you want to see the life of a university student, mixed with a barista, mixed with a wannabe musician.
That's a
yeah.
great
That's
perspective.
what I'm doing
yeah.
on there.
That's a great
Heck yeah.
perspective.
I post things that I think are funny and hope that other people think are funny too a lot of the time. So yeah, I post my covers on there a lot. I have different originals that I put on there. Danielle, to throw it back to her again,
Yeah.
is the best at like getting little clips of live performances, whether it's an
She's a
open
great
mic.
supporter, yeah.
She is like the #1 hype man of everybody.
Yeah.
It's incredible. But yeah, little clips like that are always on there, and any show announcements or anything like that, always
Awesome.
there. Yeah.
So definitely go check that out, and we will link to that stuff as well. And looking forward to you releasing music.
I'm hoping to, yeah.
And we didn't even like. I would love to next time we'll talk about the film thing too, because I'd love to know like what you're doing there. What is your main interest in that area?
For that, well, I worked at a movie theater all through high school, so I was just always surrounded by film. But it really comes back to the storytelling side of it.
Yeah.
And I also was lucky enough to grow up in the era of like YouTube really coming up.
Yeah.
So I was like talking to a camera from as young as I could remember too. As soon as I had a phone, I was like filming day in my life and that
Yeah,
sort of
yep.
thing. So I've always loved the side of movies where you make magic, really.
You did, yeah. Movie making
what's your favorite musical movie?
Oh.
I wanted to ask you earlier.
Yeah.
Because,
Movie musical.
Yeah.
Oh. I don't know if this is a little bit of a cheat. Like, Come From Away is my favorite musical ever.
I love the story of that. I've never seen it.
Yes.
My family's from Newfoundland, so I love that story. And to hear it was being turned into a musical was just anything.
Right.
And if you we talked about the Canada thing. Yeah, it's like 10 times if you're like it's a Newfie thing, right?
Yeah.
That's something. Come on, by. Yeah, that's right.
Exactly. I could recite that whole musical. That could be the next episode of the podcast. I'll just
Yes, we'll do a live reading or
a
performance.
one-woman show.
I would love to do something
sounds
like that.
awesome.
I swear, I would really love to do something like
You
that.
got to get the Newfie accent down. Though.
I've been working on it for 6 or 7 years.
There you go.
Well, hopefully the plan too in the future is to try to have some element of the podcast where someone gets to perform maybe 1 or 2 songs. So we'll have that hopefully coming up soon too.
Lovely.
Well, my goodness, this has been so lovely.
Yeah, joy.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Our pleasure. And like I said, we'll please, if you're watching this on YouTube, well, maybe subscribe or like this, but check out the links to what Katie's doing. Go check out her socials, and those will be linked. And keep your eyes open, your ears open for the music to be dropped because it's going to be great stuff. And hopefully we'll get to talk to you again soon and see you perform soon. And thank you so much for hanging out with us.
Thanks, Katie.
Thank you guys.
Alrighty, see you on the next one.